TDS is a game, it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. So here's 10 things that doesn't make sense in TDS. Most of this are mainly around game design and decisions. Here we go. Molten and Intermediate mode. For now, before the upcoming Molten rework, I hope you read this part when Molten rework actually comes instead of rushing to the comment section about Molten rework being in the game already. There is completely no practical reason to play Intermediate mode. If you are, you're probably just coping with the fact that Molten mode is goddamn boring after grinding a lot of times with it, like me. Why is there no practical reason to play Intermediate? Well, because they share the same coin rewards as Molten mode. Why? I can't get over the fact that I want to play Intermediate difficulty cause it's harder than Molten, which I like, but doing so is such a stupid idea since I'll just get the same rewards but with more effort. This is extremely unsatisfying, which overall ruins my experience of grinding them in my noob to pro video. They could have made Intermediate give 100 more coins than Molten mode, especially after Fallen rework, but no, for I don't know what reason. They seem like they added this difficulty for the sake of adding it so they can check it off in their update schedule. Patient Zero and Fallen King's abilities. It's funny how an intermediate difficulty boss has more abilities than the highest survival difficulty boss. It even has a rage mode which significantly makes Patient Zero harder. Its abilities are also in line with one of the theming in intermediate mode, which is health regeneration. Patient Zero perfectly represents himself as the intermediate final boss. Fallen King's abilities come nowhere close to Patient Zero's. It even has two summon abilities that spawn different enemies, which is really boring, though it allows Fallen King to debuff nearby towers with the same radius as his sword swing ability. The ability practically acts like that, but it debuffs instead of stuns. Fallen King is a generic boss which should be more complex than Patient Zero, so people can build up their comprehension skills on more complex mechanics. Useless quests. There's no reason to be encouraged to take a quest that makes you inefficient in your grinding. This is obviously a noob trap. Unless that quest can be finished while doing at least the most basic and efficient grinding strategy. I don't get why most of the rewards are XP and gives little coins. The devs couldn't accept improving the player's grind for a few hours every day during the quest's making. This feature has potential, but they just made it a filler. This feature did work on me in my noob to pro video, but it's not rewarding and which makes it unfun. Challenge quests. Supposedly they should have been challenging based on their gimmick. But sometimes their gimmick isn't properly used right in one of the maps. An example is the Legion challenge on Candy Valley. This is just Fallen with all paps modifier. It doesn't make sense is the fact that they released this feature before Fallen rework, knowing full damn well they're gonna rework Fallen difficulty. Just why would you ever do that? They're just adding more work to themselves in the future. Also, the rewards in challenge maps are pretty bad, especially when you could get more timescale tickets just by triumphing games. And given the fact that it takes an entire week to wait for a new map cause you can only be rewarded per week. 1 week is very long, by the way. PvP matchmaking. On some rare occasions, I stumble on a player who dislikes sending, with the audacity to call you a cheater. Usually I don't see this as something to be offended, rather showing the sheer stupidity of that player, which makes me want to use their message under a speech bubble. They don't even try to send me enemies back after I send hundreds of normals. If you're gonna be mad, put the energy in the game instead of the chat. You enter PvP to fight with other players, so of course I'm gonna send enemies to kill you. If you don't like this experience of gameplay, then you shouldn't have entered the game mode in the first place. Tickets. Tickets being a one-time thing for a quality of life feature is a stupid idea. Revive tickets, I understand, but timescale tickets sounds really annoying, especially when you don't get much of them. Being able to control the game's time is good, but why are they a one-time thing and not a full feature? Maybe cause the devs thought it would make grinding way easier, but that should be a good thing. No one wants to spend 30 minutes on an average game. Also, for some reason, these tickets are quite rare to get, which is more stupid. Understandable that this is a one-time thing. Revive tickets is a convenience where the player can restart to a wave they died. The way Revive tickets does that is more than for convenience. It helps the player in some way by allowing them to fully skip a wave. Being able to replace towers so you can spend money you have on defense. then purposely lose after a difficulty wave, then spend everything back on farms. That's just an example. Because of this, after revive tickets was finally available to the free-to-play players after a bug fix, the devs decided to disable them. Also, the time when revive tickets was released was questionable. It should have been released along with Fallen rework since the game was easy back then. Wave clear bonus. Clearing waves before the next one start already gives you an upper advantage of being able to kill the next upcoming enemies early, without worrying about the wave difficulty stacking. So why should you be rewarded more if you kill all enemies instead of skipping waves early? It just encourages players to slow down and get the most eco possible. Events. Everyone loves events so they can inflate their ego on people who were unable to attend that event. Cause they got a life and we don't. Why doesn't this make sense? Well, it's kinda a complete waste of time for the devs, making enemies and mechanics exclusive only for the event. Don't get me wrong, it is extremely rewarding even if the event sucked, but it doesn't help them long term. It would make more sense if events weren't overly ambitious and didn't consume most of their schedule in a single year. Or they'd use events as a test and actually use it for a permanent game mode. Something like Krampus Revenge, where it reuses previous existing mechanics but adds one small unique mechanic. Working on game mode reworks like Fallen rework is better. Consumables. This feature was released at the wrong time where TDS is laughably easy. Why did they add it? To compete with TDX probably, even though there's barely any competition. And better off fixing your own problems than following your competitors. These consumables are also not worth using unless you're doing a challenge, but most of those challenges bans consumables like hardcore, and some weekly challenges, which is funny. The only time where consumables is worth using is completing a hard mission quest. Tank attribute. As if slow fire rate towers aren't suffering enough. Ahem. They added another major disadvantage to it. This attribute caps all damage at 1, making the enemy incredibly tanky. Some damage type bypasses this, like collision damage. Fast fire rate towers are already meta, why encourage it even more? Game logic. The last thing that doesn't make sense that I also barely care. Game logic. High-tech towers not getting hidden detection. Higher elevated towers with no flying detection still can't see flying enemies despite being in front of their eyes. It could have been a cool gimmick for wrecked battlefield if it wasn't an easy map, and freezing a burned enemy. Yet it can still do that. It's probably for the best to keep them this way, cause balancing reasons. So that's all the things that don't make sense for me in TDS. Mostly game design. That I sometimes find it funny. Don't forget to like and sub if you want more of my videos, and thanks for watching.